Hey. Hmm.
Hello.
Um, I meant to. I've been so busy. Let's see. The no. Oh yeah, another. I didn't read it all yet. I just know I saw messages coming on Facebook. Um, Another cartography thing is fine, straight from scratch. I think we should just do that on a new cave once
Okay.
climax is done. But I do think we should get a cartography thing together to where people could just jump in. Just showing
I
them how to jump in and help
yeah,
add to this map so we can
like
get
a
it done. So
tutorial of here's where the files are and just do it.
yeah, and how to add to it and save it
Okay.
because I think that,
Dude,
but
I'm
we
good
could,
with that.
it
Um,
makes sense, but we could
yeah.
start from scratch. I just want to start from scratch if we're going to be doing another cave
No, I
almost.
agree with that. I'm okay with that. Okay.
But I
So
do
I
think it's
think
due for another one to kind of jump into it, and as long as we advertise it that way, I think we might get some people who might actually
yeah, because we've had new
contribute.
surveyors who weren't at the class, and I think to meet the need, we have everything recorded. So I can just repost the YouTube and just be like, guys, you can look at this YouTube.
Well, they don't even need any of that, like, because all
Yeah,
we need them to do
well,
is log in and drag things, basically.
I think it's different for different people though. Like some
Yeah,
people, just the way they learn.
yeah, no, yeah, I get that. If they want to learn from scratch, I think they could
Okay.
they can look through all those and they can go through the PowerPoints that are already there.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, but on the next, but sticking around until we start the next one and doing the part of the process that we're on right now with this one
Hmm.
could be easier for somebody to step in. It can be a little overwhelming if you start from scratch. But some
Okay.
people it helps them, they feel more confident in what they're working on, no doubt.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was what I was thinking on first thought. But I do think it's due for something cartography wise, even though
Yeah.
it's otherwise it's not really, we don't need to go over any skills and there is no one to teach any skills to. We just need to
Yeah.
recruit, you know, people on that
That's the
one.
hard part about the Climax project in general, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello.
Look.
Hello.
Oh, and Bo, we can't do this on next Thursday, I think, because they normally have their BIG meeting.
Well, that's
Correct.
that's fine because I think this is the last
The
one
last
that sets us
one.
up for, we're kind of waiting for the next survey after this one.
Okay.
The
Yeah,
only
and
thing we wouldn't be late waiting for is like making the cross sections and like we're not going to do a profile yet, so it would just be a day on cross sections, but we don't need to do any of that
Yeah.
before the
Okay. Sounds
survey.
good.
Which I don't think there was a date yet, right?
I didn't see one.
yeah, I talked with Laura about trying to take a small group, um, and she's on vacation, so she and I are going to touch base when she's back and
Sweet.
try
Okay.
to try to figure out a couple of weeks. We could probably get some smaller groups in to ideally get some more progress without uh, having so many people in, especially if
Hmm.
we don't have a lot of people to help and don't have all the stuff to do a bunch of groups. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
uh,
Okay.
And it should only take so many trips too once you get going. But
yeah, there's not a lot of cave there, so it should
You
hopefully
guys
go
picked a
decently quick.
really good, manageable project. I have to say, like
yeah,
that's
the climax one's quite large, but getting there. Um, okay, cool. I had that sort of on a thing to, I just was checking. I just checking in on the next survey date if there was one. But yeah. Okay, cool. Well, that's good that you guys are working on that.
Yeah, I think
Um,
we're 12th, 20th, or 26th, possibly two or all three of those.
May's hard in general. There's like Speleo Fest, and then there's Mother's Day.
Yeah, and then the
Um,
other weekend we've got a bunch of people going to OCR. So
yeah, May's just hard.
yeah,
Um, okay, well, you know, I posted two PowerPoints that kind of go through what we're going to go over today, but what we're going to do is I just want to review the locations again, roughly where everything is, and I'm going to pull it up that way too. Kind of review what we've done with Compass, SVG, AI scans, and layers, but very quickly. And then we're just going to go over brushes, swatches, and symbols. And almost just as important, or more importantly, we're going to go into how to save this thing, how to notify someone you're working at it, and, you know, make sure we all kind of save it with a similar process. So, you know, with the timestamp and the title. And we'll be able to actually work on completing this thing. What's odd is there is a kind of just a small amount of work that still needs to be done, but the file that we're going to be working on today is the cave. That's the file. And we'll click save it. Well, I might not click save at the end of this because I might draw all sorts of random stuff. But the one that I'm pulling up is the one that is in the Google Drive. So I absolutely, please ask questions about when I'm clicking around in the brushes, swatches, and symbols. If we have time, we'll go into the rocks too. And really, at the end of this, the ask is that we do an entire pass through on these first Team ABC stations and complete the entire profile apart from like cross sections for it. So that's sort of the goal after this, and then we're pretty much caught up for the most part to the survey, kind of waiting on the survey to happen, which again, I know May's super difficult, and but this is good. We want to be here caught up with the survey on the cartography side of things. Before the survey, it's good to just touch base for a quick 15 minutes and go over maybe what shots need to be redone or what station is being picked up off of. But let me share the screen, entire screen. And again, please ask questions when we get into these brushes, swatches, and symbols things. Groups. So again, here's our Facebook group. We've got the files that have all of our PowerPoints in it, and 3 and 4 are the 2 that cover today. We're going to do swatches. We're going to use swatches a little differently than they do in these PowerPoints, like the floor details. But you'll see that when we go over it. So there's our files. We have the OneDrive that's in the featured section right there. Whoops. Right there, the IU Showcave OneDrive. Again, we could still switch this if anyone runs into issues to Google Drive. I just let me know. But we're under running Illustrator files now. We'll update the Compass files when we do the next survey. So if a survey does happen in May, we'd maybe have like a 5/22/24 IU Showcave FDAT file uploaded. And we'll show you how to, at that point, I'll show you how to pull the new line plot and put it into the current Illustrator file. But the running Illustrator files, and then we'll also update the survey scans. Running Illustrator files has our IU Showcave. And notice it's a .ai file. When you start moving stuff into SVG Exporter and Illustrator, sometimes it wants to just save it as an SVG file, and you can't really do much with that. So I'm going to click download because this is just me. This is if I was on Saturday night all alone wanting to work on this map. I would go ahead and download that. And what I'm going to do, though, I'm going to make sure I open it in the old Adobe Illustrator. If I just double click it, it's not going to happen. So you can find the file like that. And I know we already know that, but I just want to review it. And let me just open it. There's one other new thing. Let's see if I can just get like downloads. Oh boy. Oh boy. Where's my downloads? I saved it in another spot too, but I'm just gonna go to the other spot that I saved it. Shoot, wrong one. Hang on. Open. Oopsies. Running it. There we go. Okay. It's Saturday night. I'm all alone. have had a few beers, and I want to work on this damn map. So the other thing I'm going to do is let the chat know. So in this Facebook group, I've added a chat that says actively working chat group, and be like, hey, working on the map. Just a quick notification so that if somebody else was lonely on a Saturday night and had nothing better to do, if somebody's already working on it and hasn't notified anyone that they're not done working on it, you don't want to double dip on it because there's no like active cloud sharing on this thing. So you're gonna put a message in there. Everyone knows not to work on it during that time, and you can just get started. So what we ended with was lining up our scans from the line plot that we brought in from SVG Exporter. Got our A stations, our B stations, and our C stations. Notice that these don't all line up. Well, yeah, actually, never mind, they do. Some of them are a little off. This is nothing. This is amazing that they're this close type of thing. If you take over an old survey, you might see some differences because they didn't even sketch to scale. So this is great. We got something to work off there. So the next question is, all right, how do we start putting in all these other things? What do we put in? So I've preloaded, and the PowerPoints I posted, the PowerPoints in the file section under 3 and 4 here will tell you how to make brushes and symbols. I don't think it goes over swatches, but it tells you how we made these, but we're going to speed up this process by having some pre-made. And I'll go over really quick, like if you want to make a symbol, you would take, I'm just going to put you'd take a random stroke with the pen tool, for example, make a big X, pick the selector tool, shift click both of those and just drag it into a symbol. And then suddenly you got a symbol you can keep making. So what we're going to do is make symbols for things that we actually need instead of random shapes. And that's what we have for the slope, for example. And I can click R, which is the rotate tool here on the left side, and start rotating that slope any way I want. But as I'm making these, as I'm putting slopes in, like there's a slope there, I could try to put one there. As I'm putting slopes in, I'm putting them under my walls layer, which is not what we want. We want to put slopes all in their own layer, so that way we can change them all. If the map got really big and we needed to change all the slope lines at once for some reason, or hide them all at once. So I'm actually going to delete those by just clicking and dragging them into this trash can. I'm going to go back to my little layers plane here, and I'm just going to go to the bottom, and there's a create new layer, and I'm just going to call it slope. And you can double click it and change the color of it. For symbols, it doesn't really matter, but for some of the drawing ones that you're actively drawing with, you do want them in a nice neon color. So we would literally start just completing this map. And I see a slope here. I'm going to rotate it. I'm going to click V to do my selector tool, click and drag it, click R to rotate it, like this. But I'm sure some of you guys are noticing something already here. And they're almost a little too big. And so there's a couple ways to do that. You could make a new symbol, or you could edit this symbol. Like, for example, this is way stretched weird, but just to paint the picture for you, you could just edit it and click and drag, and then you got a new symbol that's smaller or wider or longer or something. But if you just click the corner, well, don't click the corner. If you hover over the corner and hold Shift, you can downsize and upsize the symbol without changing, I believe. I think in the new Illustrator, it doesn't change it, but it almost did change the line weight there. So you are changing the line weight, which is fine on a small cave like this. but that's one option, and that's probably the best option in this scenario. These aren't the same exact symbol as the original symbol we're making. So if we were to switch them all at once, we could still switch them to something. Like I could highlight them all. I don't know if this is going to work. You could highlight them all by clicking the whole layer circle there. Click a new symbol like these soda straws. Click this play button and click replace symbol. I could be, oh, there we go. So that's interesting. And it even downsized those other ones. But that's a little ahead of what we're doing right now. But I just want you to know that, if you do unsize them, like they maybe need to be there, just take that stuff into consideration. So a lot of the map building can be clicking and dragging. For symbols such as slope, let's see if we see anything else in here. Not flowstone really. Do we have any formations? Let's pretend we had some formations here to fill in. The height circles, we can make a symbol for that pretty easily with just a circle tool. In fact, I can upload some. But if there was some formations, we could put stalagmites in, stalactites in, columns in. We do have one preloaded for flowstone. But if you have a large flowstone section, we have a brush for it too. We put some rocks in and stuff, some mud if we want to use the mud symbol, but we're going to probably use swatches for that. But just know there's some preloaded stuff in here, so we can do a little plug and play dragging. There's a lot of slopes there, but pretty much just doing slopes on the first pass through. So we'd start adding our slopes. And you don't have to have a slope for every single one of these like they drew. Like just because they drew it that way and it has that many slopes, you don't need that. You can make it look kind of nice. Like, okay, we're clearly coming up from up here and going down. Let's put like one slope at the start, two slopes next to each other, and space them out appropriately. And you can zoom out and see how that sort of looks if you want. You got to think if you're doing everything zoomed in to plus 800%, you got to consider, okay, when this map is printed, it's going to look like at 100%. So, every now and then I kind of zoom out and take a look at, what I'm doing there and if it's going to be legible in the grand scheme of the map. This is an 8.5 by 11 square, I believe, but I would need a rectangle. I'd need to double check. But printing it and downsizing it for the final print is all another thing. So symbols are easy. You can make them easily. You can click and drag them into the symbols, and you can just start plugging them into the map. And as we continue to work on this, we might change our symbols, and we can change them all at once as long as we make everything in a layer. So whenever you're doing something new, when you're out and doing this thing, just make a layer to place all these new things that you're putting in, and make sure there's not already a layer for something you're already going to do. So that's symbols. So any questions on symbols or the concept of symbols? We did not make our wall with symbols. We did it with the pen tool. So if I click the selector tool, which is the V button, I can click on the wall and I have that in a layer, and I can learn more about that down here. It says the weight is 1.5, and weight is very important. You want your walls to be the most weighted part of your cave to make it pop. And you want everything else to be less than what your walls are, or the same, I guess. So the symbols, they're preloaded. So when you start importing them from other cavers projects, it can get confusing, because if you click on the symbol right now, I have it highlighted, it says the weight's 1.5, but it's not. And that's even more confusing when you start downsizing it, because you're like, well, the weight's definitely not 1.5, but it still says it's 1.5. When you have a symbol, it's like tied to its own own thing. If you click it, you right click it, you can break the link to the symbol. And then you can ungroup these 3 individual lines that were grouped up when it made them a symbol. So again, right click, ungroup. And now it'll tell you the line weight's actually 1. And if you do like some sort of shift drag, I think it still says it's 1, which means I may not have been messing with it. But when I was at a group of it, I think it was messing with it. But you can see that it actually doesn't switch. It's wonder if I click 1, 2, 3. I wanna, never mind. Oh no. Okay. I'm just gonna get rid of that. So symbols, there you go. When someone's working on this, we really just need to add the slope lines as our symbols. I don't see any others, which is just interesting. Let's do brushes because that's got a significant part in this. Oh, and the symbols and the anything that's like a major passage change, I want to keep somewhat close to the wall size of 1.5 weight. So I like the 1 weight for the symbols because we're going to use the 1 weight for the major floor changes and ceiling changes as well. Everything, that's kind of what I stick to I keep them all in the same category because slope to me is a sort of major floor change. We're going to use brushes, and we've got them made for flowstone. I've got leader lines. We've got a floor canyon, a floor, a drip line, which is our entrance, a ceiling, and a canyon. I guess a ceiling canyon. And these ones are kind of fun. So if we start at the beginning here, I'm just gonna want to keep one slope in there. We have a floor ledge right at the beginning of the cave here. And so I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to call it floor ledge. Ledges. I'm going to double click that layer again. I'm going to make it like a nice bright pink because it's going to be sort of a drawing layer. And the brush tool is the letter B on the keyboard, but you can also find it as it looks like the paintbrush in the tools section. So if you highlight the paintbrush, you're going to then need to click which brush you're using. And if this is all gone, you can find windows and you can highlight brushes. So windows, how you find things that may have disappeared on you. So I got the paintbrush highlighted. I got my floor ledge layer highlighted. And I'm going to find floor. I'm going to click it. And I'm going to start drawing in, literally tracing the floor ledge. But it's a backwards. So if you do that, it's actually quite common. I went down, up. So to start it, I actually have to go up to down, and it'll get it in right for me. So that'll happen a lot. It'll keep it selected, so you just can click the letter B and continue where you left off. You can see that it's a little offset to where you're actually drawing, and that's okay. Oops. Control Z is going to be your friend. Like if you accidentally do this, just Control Z, which is the undo, and try again. And I'm just doing this with a mouse. No special drawing tool. And you got yourself a floor ledge. I keep it at 1 weight compared to the 1.5 weight because it's sort of a major change for me. Putting this in, I'm saying, all right, this slope's already kind of not working there. So you can either pull it off a little bit or you could make it a little smaller. If you're sort of actively doing things, I like to do all the floor ledges first in the map and then go from there. But so that's a brush. They're very easy to put in. I don't know if that's flowstone. We might need to look at the cross section, but I'm just wanting to show flowstone. Again, I would actually make a layer for it and you could brush in some flowstone. And it's showing up, and sometimes some of these brushes need some work, or you need to play with it a little bit to try to get it to. I think I put the wrong one on because I got one that's not doing that. Oh, unless it's the old Illustrator thing. But anyway, we can change this at any time. Where did I put that? It's gray because I got my layers all mixed up because I was putting this brush all the way in the April scans. You can change your brushes at any time. You can change all of them by highlighting the entire layer and just clicking a new brush. I can change it all to leader lines or a drip line or a ceiling change or a ceiling canyon type of thing. So there's really no room for error. Like if we put everything in layers, and you can see when I highlighted everything in that layer that I was drawing, I turned it all into flowstone. And there it is as a floor ledge again. If we were to, one more time, a little ceiling ledge here, again, I'd have a different layer for ceiling ledge. I would highlight, I'm clicking the layer that I want to put this in. There's my ceiling. I'm going to click the letter B. I'm just going to put in that ceiling ledge right there. And that's brushes. So we do some things with symbols, we do some things with brushes, and we do some things by literally just drawing it out, like the walls. To do the walls, you know, we took a pen tool and we just traced the walls in. If you start a new one without, you always want to click on the continuation of the wall if you can by clicking with the selector tool, which is V, or this one right here in the upper left. And then continue that line. But we draw things, we symbol things, we brush things, and we're also going to be swatching things. So swatches, we find when you do large cave projects, work best for the minute floor details. In this case, there's some mud here. A better example might be, well, there's a lot of sediment there. That's a good wide area to look at. There's also some mud here, which we could play with the layering on. I'm going to go ahead and hide that. So I'm just going to put in a swatch here that's mud, and I want to kind of show, well, that won't be a good. I'm going to go back up here. Just a little circle of mud. So I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to call it mud. And it's going to be a swatch. So I'm going to use the pen tool for this. And I'm just going to make a starting circle. And I'm going to make sure this circle is completely closed off. To do that, you could try to just draw it onto it. But a better way is while you're making your circle is to hold the Alt button. And it will automatically close it most of the time. Let me lock the scans. So I'm locking the scans because I'm tired of clicking on them instead of the circle. And I probably put the circle in the scans, which I did. I pull that into the mud. So we got a circle here, and again, we're just kind of going over swatches. For the swatch portion of this, we're going to go and look at this little setup here. This is saying the outside is black and the inside is transparent. We could change the inside from transparent to a swatch or a color fill by clicking that transparent side and then clicking what we want. And one of these is mud, and I'll change the names from do not use. But there's a little bit of mud, and this mud was for a very zoomed out map that's going to be looking at like, 8%. So this mud might not work for this. But again, we just need to get the symbols in and the swatches in, and we can change mud to be whatever we want. this might be a better appropriately like sized mud for this map. Here's another mud that somebody gave me one time. I have a cobble placeholder, a sediment placeholder, and a mud placeholder if we want to make a decision later. So let's do this one just because it's brown and it'll work for this. So one issue we have here is this ugly outside border. We're going to go back to this little box thing, click the border side, and down here we can click none. And now we can identify, you know, where the mud is. Oops. Should be. And we could even match this with the passage walls or the ledge wall there that we haven't put in yet. You know, and line the mud up perfectly with the wall. And there's ways to do this without tracing it all. And if that happens, yeah, just power through it. So now we have like a good little spot of mud there. And if we zoom out, you know, you kind of see if you use a swatch that's too compact, when you really zoom out of it for the final print, it might not look, you know, like horizontal lines. But you know, that's the hardest part about us all working together on this is going to be the you know, which one of these we're going to use. I preloaded a ton of them to get us started, but you know, if anything, us just putting in the layers and the swatches where we want them allows us to change any part of the map anytime we want if we're not happy with it. So that's sort of the power there. So that's swatches. Another way to do mud that the PowerPoints go over is that there's a little mud there. You could do mud with a symbol. And, you know, I put some of that up there to show that. So there is some mud, you know, and you could just put that in and rotate it. And that could be your mud if you just have a little bit of mud. But when you start getting to larger maps and all that and swapping everything at once, the swatches are much easier to change the layout and look a lot more than symbols of mud like that. You could even brush in mud. You could make this symbol a brush and just start brushing it in. And the PowerPoints go over a little bit more about that. Like if you double click any of these brushes, you can start playing with the scale of the brush, the spacing between strokes, how it stretches or adds space to flip it and whatnot. So there's all sorts of stuff. There's even like, what is it going to do on the corner? And that's one way we could probably get that flow stone to behave a little bit better. But that's the symbols, the brushes, and the swatches. And what we're doing is we're just, again, copying the sketch. And those are pretty straightforward. What's not as straightforward, I think, is the rocks. So are there any questions about brushes, symbols, and swatches? I think one thing to get, the brushes are pretty clean. I'd say those are very straightforward. You know, we could change the flow stone later. We could just keep it using as symbols. Some of the symbols maybe are confusing because there's a mud symbol, but we also have a mud swatch, but there's really not too many symbols we're going to be using off the bat. The swatches are probably the most, you know, unclear right now with how many there are up there. But again, we can change them at any time as long as we layer everything in the same layer. And even if we don't layer everything in the same layer, we can always have somebody go through and add them all to the same layer so that we can change them all at once. So if I was to save this right now, you know, I would click File, Save As. I got an IU show cave. The date is 5/2/24. And I think we should just go ahead and timestamp it. This would be 7:31 p.m. and I'd click save. I would then, oh, and then when you are saving, there are a few things. If you click create PDF compatible file, it's going to be take a lot longer to load. The images tend to mess it up a bit that are kind of in here, is my understanding, but I keep create PDF compatible file off, especially when I'm using the old Illustrator. Everything else is fine. It's saving. It's going to take longer and longer as long as we keep adding more scans. So we'll see what happens. If we have to delete scans off of the master file, we'll get rid of like the data ones. But once you have that saved, you're going to go to the Facebook group. In the featured section, click the OneDrive and upload it under running Illustrator files. And we'll just keep them coming. And we'll start getting rid of these as we go. The file size is so big strictly because of all the scans we have in there. But if we embed the photos, we're not going to be able to share this easily because everyone's going to upload their own embedded images and it'll be a bit of a mess. So we'll see how long we can get away with that. It's a smaller cave, so I think we'll be fine. And then when you're done working on it, you'll go back to the chat, be like, I don't know, done and uploaded. And then we just keep it going. And anybody who wants to work on it can. If someone gets super busy, someone else can jump in. If somebody makes a mistake, somebody can fix it. We can move anything around layers. We can change layers. We can, move. We can do all sorts of stuff. So there's really no issue, even if you went in and kind of messed things up a little bit. And we also will always have the other revisions of the save, at least starting out. But it's always going to be on someone's computer too, if we have to start deleting for space or something. But I don't think we will have that issue. Highly doubt it with this smaller cave. The only thing that's left is rocks. And I'm going to go ahead and do a quick thing on that just because that is such a time consuming part. So I'm going to make a layer called rocks. I'm going to zoom in. Everyone's got their own opinions here, but I like to work. I definitely don't like to go over like 800%. 600 is usually good when I'm really drawing in some rocks, but there's a lot of factors that depend on it. But we're going to zoom in for this purpose so you can see really well. And we got some rocks. So to draw rocks, we're going to draw them with the pen tool. And if I double click it, I can keep selected on. And we're going to go ahead and take that off because when I go to draw my rock, and I'm just going to draw with my mouse, there are drawing pads you can get to help make this a little easier. I'm going to go ahead and draw in this rock. I'm just going to trace the outline of the rock. I'm going to hold Alt so it closes it. And then I'm going to change my line weight to 0.5. And it'll keep drawing in 0.5 from now on. Like if I go make another one, it's going to draw in 0.5. But notice that all that unhighlighted when I drew another. I don't know what's up with that. Anyway, now I'm going to add the 3D to this rock. So I have a closed outline, and now I can add this middle piece to it and give it sort of that 3D effect. What's interesting when you do this is you can add some color to your rocks with this method of making a closed outline and just a line through the 3D portion. You can click the closed circle for the rock, and you can go back to our little square diddly doodad over here, and we have a transparent fill in it, but we can change that to a color, and we can start making our rocks brown. And whenever you use colors or gray, whatever you want to do, whenever you use colors, you're going to want to make sure they're very, very, very light. And there's it without the, kind of looks the same. Definitely lighter colors are your friend. I would say that's not even light enough. I'd lighten it up a little bit. I don't know why it didn't. Oh, it's because I wasn't clicked on it. Oh, well, that's gone. I'll lighten it up a little bit. That might be a little too bright, but lighter colors are better with these sorts of things. And if you do have a color you like, you just click and drag it into your swatches, and there it is. You can double click it to name it. Rock. And kind of go from there. So when you're building rocks, if we want to do color, you got to make a complete outline, make sure it's closed, and then put in your 3D. Now, what was interesting about this one is we had a rock over another rock. So I'm going to click this, hold shift, click it again, drag it away so I can see. In this case, this isn't always the process, but we got a rock under there. So let's just play with that really quick. Pen tool, still keeping a weight of 0.5. I'm going to do the outline real quick. I'm going to hold shift, make sure it closes. It didn't keep it highlighted, so I can automatically go in and put that sort of 3D aspect there. I can click V to bring you back to selector tool, where you can manually click it. Click the outside, put in my swatch, and now we got two rocks. But what I want to show you is that's not right. This rock is now on top of this rock. So we need to fix that. So it can either be based on, I think that's, sure, before. Yeah, we got to get this rock on top of this rock. So a couple ways to do that. You can click both these things. You can go into your layer. It's got these two highlighted. You can click one, hold control, click the other, and drag it to the top of the layer, and it'll be on top of it. You could also just right click, arrange, bring to front, and there's even a shortcut for that. So that's sort of how you do rocks in a very, 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 very quick nutshell. But, you know, you start zooming out. We can always change the color later by just highlighting the entire layer. We can make them red. And we'll have the ability to do colored rocks if we put them in like that. All you have to do is make sure you have a closed outline, and then you'll have to play with the layering a little bit. But what's nice is there's a lot you can do with that too, because you can move them or rotate them. You can do anything to them in the event that you need to. And send it back to the back if I wanted to. And now they've switched layers there. So some of this helps with like when you're in cave and you're like, how do I stack rocks? Like playing with it on Illustrator is kind of nice too. And you start drawing these because you can kind of start figuring out ways to do that in the field a little bit. Because in the field, we take the shortcuts. You know, you only would draw these outlines here, but in Illustrator, we're drawing like the whole rock and actually just like hiding it under or putting it on top. So that's that. We're pretty much at the point where we don't need to do another one of these until the next survey. By the next survey, we want to have all the details done for the first 4 teams of stations here. And you know, if you start working on it between now and the next survey, just go in the chat group and let us know you're working on it and that you're done, and then upload it to the thing, and then somebody else can take it from there. And if you're, yeah, that's it. Questions, thoughts, and something.
It's kind of cool seeing everybody working on it together, because then it's truly a weird way of crowdsourcing the map, because it's a lot of work if you do it all alone, but having everybody with a little bit of free time doing a little piece makes it really manageable.
And this is this is so small right now that only one person really needs to do it and could do it. But if we had the whole cave of stuff, it would take quite a bit longer, and it'd be nice to have everyone doing this. But the idea is that any of us can go in, knock out a little bit, play with it, you know, upload it, and then the next person can take it from there.
And again, so, low pressure way of learning, right? You can mess it up as many times as you want, like Bo said.
So that's all I got. If there's no questions, you know, we'll keep in touch on the next survey. Well, I know you guys are working on the next survey day and all that, but and we'll be sure to meet no matter what before that survey and just look at whatever we have for a map to help guide that survey. That's all I got. If anyone's got anything else, otherwise, good night, everyone, and thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. See yous.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
bye.
Bye, guys.